Next up we have the plague of boils. The magicians who had initially been Paro's strongest supporters were ground zero for the plague of boils, with the rest of the populace to follow, including all recently purchased animals from Hebrews. The boils developed into infectious blisters that burned like fire across their bodies. Each plague was like a personal tour through the various chambers of Gehenna. Some of the boils were moist on the outside but dry on the inside. The afflictions came from furnace soot that had been cast miraculously by Moshe in a straight vertical line like an arrow into the sky. In front of Paro, he somehow gathered 4 handfuls of soot into one hand, and it rose supernaturally higher and higher until it mushroomed across the length and breadth of Mitzrayim. As it descended and encountered Mitzrayite flesh, the scorched boils appeared. The air became foggy with dust like a sandstorm, and not long after, screams and cries of anguish began to erupt across the land. The soot symbolized the devotion of Hashem's people, starting with Abraham, who was willing to throw himself into the furnace to sanctify the Almighty's name, and the Mitzrites subjected the Hebrews to immerse in cold baths to warm the waters, or to immerse in hot waters to cool them down. Now the Mitzrites would not be able to bathe at all, as the application of water made the boils more painful. This was because when a Hebrew became wounded or overexposed to the sun during their labors, the Mitzrites would not allow them to receive first aid. So now the boils would prove to be totally untreatable. Just like the injuries inflicted upon the Hebrews caused them to not be able to be intimate with their wives, the Mitzrites had to separate from their wives too. The boils literally destroyed their flesh, making them look hideous and disfigured. In fact, even after this plague, scars on top of the previous scars from the lice would remain on the Mitzrites for the rest of their lives. That is, if they survived the remaining plagues. Altogether, there were 24 different types of boils. Some dry, some wet, some hot, some cold, some with a combination. The boils also developed into mange where there was hair, causing it to fall out. A supposed cure for one boil inflamed another, and the physicians were constantly harassed for cures, with some of them actually dying due to overwork. The worst of the blisters was called razan, and was a skin disease from an infection in the brain. This caused a running nose and eyes, incessant drooling, blood loss, and an inability to stand. The magicians stayed in their dwelling, not wanting to show their putrid states before the people. Had they managed to leave to somehow confront Paro with any solutions or rationales, they would have been unrecognizable. In fact, many of them died in this plague as retribution for advising Paro to bathe in the blood of Hebrew babies and supporting the babies being drowned in the Nile, and the suggestion to kill a young Moshe when he touched Paro's crown many years prior. Paro suffered heavily with the boils, and had not Hashem hardened his heart, he would have certainly let the Hebrews leave 100% on their terms this time. Mitzrayim was on a non-stop path to its own destruction, and there was no stepping off the wagon for any of them. All of them would pay the price for their cruel torments and acts of cold-blooded murder, one step at a time. If you like the content of this channel, get a hold of this book. It is literally jam-packed with information you will not find in most Torah publications. Its pages include topics like the fable of the money-hungry Jew, the lie that propelled the Holocaust, the real root of anti-Semitism, rightly dividing Mashiach, which contains startling truths about the Messiah you will not read anywhere else, Judaism in the New Testament, updated information about the creation of the Golem and the false Messiah, the commandment to wage war, the truth about the Shield of David, a compendium of all the false teachings in the Messianic movement to help you navigate what is truth, biblical capital punishment, and why you should be frightened of sinning, the significance of the land of Israel, the obligations of the student, the eye in the triangle, sanctified sex, how to think like a Jew, and much, much more. There is also an updated chapter 1, and along with all the other chapters, has hundreds of footnotes and references. This is a book that took 10 years to research and compile, and will be a welcome addition to the library of any discerning student of Torah and Mashiach. Get it today on Amazon and other online bookstores. Bye for now.